When I first became a mom, I felt overwhelmed with balancing motherhood and homemaking. And I didn't know how I was supposed to keep this tiny human alive while also managing my home and taking care of myself. But over the past 11 years, I have learned some simple and practical strategies that have helped me, and I want to share those with you today while I just take you along and get some things done. One of the hardest parts about balancing motherhood with homemaking for me was making dinner. It just seemed like at the 5 o'clock crazy time, that's when it was just my kids were hungry, they were a little cranky, they were tired because it was the end of the day. I was low on energy and I needed to get dinner on the table, and it just was very stressful. So I did a few things that really helped me with that. So I'm going to talk about that first, and then we'll get into cleaning as well, because that's another part that I had to figure out what worked. But first of all, let's just talk about making dinner. So one of the things that I realized is I had to have a weekly plan. I couldn't wait until the day of to figure out what we were going to eat. I couldn't wait until 5 o'clock to open up the refrigerator or the freezer and just try to figure out what was going to be made for dinner. Instead, I had to have a plan. So every week I started making a very simple plan of 5 to 6 meals that we would have for the week. And then I knew I had those ingredients ready to go, and that just cuts back on a lot of the stress. So when you don't have to deal with that, along with, different things that come up with the kids, that really does help. So first of all, start with just having a weekly meal plan. Another thing was just keeping it super simple, because the less time that you spend in the kitchen away from your kids, separated from them, I think really does help and cut back on the stress. Because, let's say you have a child who has a blowout, a baby that in a diaper, and you need to go change that diaper in the middle of making dinner. Well, if you've kept things simple and you're not making a super complicated recipe, that really does help. And you can be interrupted while you're cooking dinner because you're not following, 10 million steps in a recipe. And something that really helped me a lot was just having canned vegetables and frozen vegetables as an easy side dish, especially in those early years with babies and toddlers. I even would do instant mashed potatoes, which I haven't bought those in years, but at the time, that's what I needed, because I just needed something easy and simple that wasn't going to take a lot of time. Now, let's talk about cleaning. So, first of all, I always say this, and so you've probably heard me say this before, but the two things when it comes to cleaning that you need to stay on top of every day are laundry and dishes. If you can do those two things, you're going to alleviate a lot of stress in your life. And laundry and dishes really don't take that long when you break it down. So laundry, just starting a load every morning as part of your morning routine, does not have to take long. And then the dishes, just every time you get done with a meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, do a quick cleanup in the kitchen, either putting them in the dishwasher or maybe taking 5 or 10 minutes to wash the dishes by hand. And doing those two things is really going to cut back on your stress as a mom, just staying on top of them. And you should be able to have, 5 or 10 minutes here and there when you can do the dishes or the laundry. And then also just a quick tidy up. So sweeping, or, tidying up the toys or shoes or the mail, whatever is out, doing that just as a regular everyday thing, so that you don't have these huge piles of messes that you have to deal with that take a lot of time. But if you just have 30 seconds here and there taking care of little tidying tasks, that's going to help you not have to spend so much time cleaning at one time. And of course, as a mother, you don't have a lot of time, which is one thing that I realized very quickly after becoming a mom, was that I couldn't clean my whole house at one time. I couldn't dedicate 1 hour or 2 hours to cleaning my house from top to bottom. Instead, I had to spread it out throughout the week. And so I had my daily tasks that I would keep up on, but then I also had weekly chores like mopping and dusting and doing a thorough vacuuming and cleaning the bathrooms. Those are things that I only had to do once a week, but I would spread them out on different days so that it wasn't just like spending hours cleaning, but instead it was spending 15 minutes or 20 minutes getting those tasks done. Because as a mom, that's pretty much all the time that you have, most likely you can have your child will be okay for 15 or 20 minutes if it's a baby in a bouncy seat or in a swing, or maybe, if they take a nap, you have some time to clean then, but you don't want to spend the entire time that they're napping cleaning. You want to rest as well. And so just using those 15 or 20 minutes spreading out the cleaning really makes a huge difference in just being able to keep the house clean. And something else that really worked for me when my kids were younger is making sure that before I do a deep cleaning where I need a set amount of time, like 15 or 20 minutes to be uninterrupted, was to make sure that I was meeting my kids' physical and emotional needs before I started cleaning. So that was different depending on their ages. But as far as like the babies, when they were baby stage, they basically needed diapers changed. They needed to have been fed. They needed a nap. They needed some cuddle time. And so I really thrived on routines, and so did my babies. And so I would follow a routine of just nap time and then a diaper change, and then I would feed them, and then we would stay awake for a little while. And during that time that they were awake, we would go for a walk outside, or I would put them in a swing or in the bouncy seat, or maybe I would just carry them around with me. And so that way we were on a routine, and I knew when I was going to be able to do some cleaning because I knew when their needs were going to be met and they weren't going to be as fussy at certain times. Now, it wasn't perfect, and not every day went exactly as planned or the same. No day was exactly the same, but being on that routine really did help so that I was able to fit in my cleaning around taking care of my babies. And then when they became toddlers and into preschool, of course, they were a little more independent, but they still wanted me, and they still often wanted to be near me. And there were times when I just needed to get some cleaning done. So what I found I needed to do was I needed to spend some time with them. I made sure that they weren't hungry. They either had a snack or had a meal. And then I would do things with them. So for my daughter, she loved to be read to. And so I would read 2 or 3 books to her. Or sometimes we would have a little tea party, and then I would go get my cleaning done. But if I read to her first and she got that one-on-one time with me, then she could look at the books and she was okay being independent, and she didn't need me for a while. The same thing with my son. He didn't love being read to, but he loved playing with his little Duplo blocks. And so sometimes I would just build a tower with him, or we'd build a garage for his cars to park in, and I would spend a little time with him and give him that one-on-one connection, kind of just filling up his little love bucket. And then he was okay. He could spend some time on his own, and I could go get some cleaning done. So I know I haven't exhausted all the tips for balancing motherhood and homemaking, but I hope that today has given you some ideas. I do want to end with one other thing, and that is that you also just need the motivation to be a mother and to care for your home. And a lot of that is taking care of yourself. And so I would encourage you to get the sleep that you can by going to bed at a decent time. You can't control when you are going to wake up during the night to have to feed a baby, or to, take care of a child who isn't sleeping through the night, but you can control the time that you go to bed. And so I always encourage young moms to go to bed at a decent time. Don't stay up super late binging on Netflix or whatever. get the sleep that you need. And then another thing, I always encourage them to go outside, get some fresh air. Don't sit inside on your phone and just stay sedentary, but get out, move, because once you start moving and getting outside and just you're in a state of motion, that just motivates you more and it energizes you more to get the things done that you need to around your home, and also just gives you time with your kids. You can go outside and go on a walk with your kids. You can, go in the backyard and look at different things or push them in a tree swing. And that's going to just give you that time with your kids, but it's also going to, like I said, get you in the state of motion. And then you're going to be more motivated to come in and sweep the floor or fold a load of laundry. If you have not signed up for my free homemaking resources, I will leave them linked below. You can check those out and see which one you would like and what would be helpful for you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.